4. Signs you're using Stoicism the wrong way. I thought practicing Stoicism would make me more disciplined, more resilient. Instead, I just found myself feeling emotionally distant and more anxious than ever. It wasn't until I learned to spot 4 common ways we get Stoicism wrong that I was able to turn everything around. In this video, I want to share those 4 signs with you so you can avoid the same traps I fell into. For a long time, my idea of Stoicism was basically a caricature. I imagined a Stoic as a human statue, unflinching, unfeeling, and totally unmoved by the chaos of the world. I'd read all the quotes from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, and I saw them as a user manual for building this impenetrable fortress around my mind. My goal was simple: feel less, be less affected. I figured if I could just logic my way out of pain, disappointment, and frustration, I'd finally get that unshakable peace the philosophers wrote about. But the reality was completely different. The more I tried to shove my feelings down, the more they started to control me from the shadows. I wasn't becoming resilient, I was becoming brittle. I wasn't building discipline, I was just building a very sophisticated system of denial. When friends came to me with their problems, I'd give them a cold, logical breakdown, thinking I was being helpful. In reality, I was just being dismissive. I mistook a lack of emotion for strength, and in the process, I pushed away the very people I cared about. The anxiety was the most surprising part. I thought that by accepting what I couldn't control, I'd feel this sense of peace. Instead, all I felt was this creeping powerlessness. My mantra of "it is what it is" just became an excuse for inaction, a reason to let life happen to me instead of being an active part of it. I was a spectator in my own life, watching from the sidelines with a calm, detached look on my face, while my inner world was a complete mess. Honestly, it was a lonely and confusing place to be. I thought I was following the rules, but I was getting the exact opposite of what was promised. This wasn't tranquility. It was quiet desperation. It was only when I was forced to admit that my whole approach was wrong that I started to see a way out. I had to tear down my entire understanding of Stoicism and rebuild it, this time focusing not on what it helped me avoid, but on what it was calling me to do. I realized that real Stoicism isn't about getting rid of your emotions. It's about transforming them. It's not about disconnecting from the world, but about engaging with it in a virtuous way. That journey helped me pinpoint 4 huge warning signs, 4 ways this amazing philosophy can get twisted into a tool for self-sabotage. Seeing them was the key to unlocking the real power of Stoicism, and today I want to share them with you, so you don't have to walk that same painful, misguided path. Emotional suppression. The first, and probably the most common, sign you're misusing Stoicism is using it to suppress your emotions instead of managing them. This is that classic caricature of the Stoic, the person who just grits their teeth and shows nothing, who believes that any hint of sadness, anger, or fear is a sign of weakness. I was the poster child for this. I truly believed the goal was to live in a state of pure, uninterrupted logic, where emotions were just annoying glitches you had to ignore or delete. I remember this one time I got some really disappointing news about my career. My immediate, practiced response was to tell myself, "This is an external event. It has no power over me. It is indifferent." I refused to let myself feel the sting of rejection or the frustration. I put on a calm face, went about my day, and told myself I was being a good Stoic. But that emotion didn't just disappear. It went underground, and it festered. For days, I was irritable, I couldn't focus, and I had this low-level hum of anxiety I couldn't shake. I hadn't processed the feeling. I'd just locked it in a cage. And a caged animal is still dangerous. This is a huge misunderstanding of what the Stoics actually taught. They never said to eliminate feelings. They were human. They knew emotions are a natural, unavoidable part of life. The Stoic term, apatheia, which often gets mistranslated as apathy, doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being free from the control of irrational, destructive passions, the kind of overwhelming feelings that hijack your reason. Seneca, a guy who dealt with political drama, exile, and eventually a death sentence, wrote a lot about emotions. He famously called anger a brief madness and saw it as a destructive force. But his solution wasn't to pretend you're not angry. It was to understand what triggers it, to question the judgments that cause it, and to stop feeding it. He advised that the greatest cure for anger is delay. That's not suppression, that's mindful intervention. It's about creating a little bit of space between that initial spark of feeling and how you react. True Stoic practice is more like a three-step process. First, you acknowledge the feeling. You don't deny it. You just say, okay, I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling sad right now. Second, you analyze it with reason. You ask yourself, what thought is causing this feeling? Is that thought actually true? Is this thing I'm reacting to even in my control? Epictetus would remind us that it's not events that upset us, but our judgments about them. So you look at that judgment. The disappointment I felt wasn't just about the news itself. It was tied to a deeper judgment that this setback meant I wasn't good enough. That was the real source of the pain, and that was what I needed to work on. Third, you act with virtue. After acknowledging and analyzing the emotion, you choose a rational response. This doesn't mean you won't feel sad, but you won't let that sadness drag you into despair or stop you from moving forward. Seneca even said that the wise person is touched by grief, but not overwhelmed by it. It's the difference between feeling a wave of sadness and letting yourself drown in it. When you use Stoicism just to numb yourself, you're robbing yourself of really valuable information. Your emotions are data. They're signals that tell you what you value, where you're vulnerable, and what you believe about the world. Ignoring them is like trying to navigate without a compass. You're not being strong, you're just flying blind. The goal of Stoicism isn't to become a robot. It's to become a wise, emotionally resilient person who can feel things deeply without being controlled by them. If your practice is making you feel more like a machine and less like a human, that's a big red flag you're on the wrong track. Fatalistic detachment. The second sign you might be getting Stoicism wrong is when you fall into a state of fatalistic detachment. This is what happens when that core Stoic idea of accepting what you cannot control gets twisted into a passive, hands-off approach to life. It's the philosophy of the shrug. My relationship is failing. Oh well, out of my control. My career is stuck. I guess this is my fate. The world is in crisis. Nothing I can do. This mindset is a corruption of one of the most powerful tools in Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. I fell deep into this trap. When I first learned about Epictetus's big idea that some things are up to us and some aren't, I felt this huge wave of relief. It was so freeing to realize I didn't have to carry the weight of the whole world on my shoulders. I couldn't control the economy, what other people thought of me, or if it rained on my picnic. But that initial relief slowly turned into a kind of lazy resignation. I started expanding the list of things I can't control to include anything that was just difficult, uncomfortable, or required a lot of effort. Instead of having a tough conversation with a loved one, I'd tell myself, I can't control how they'll react, so what's the point? Instead of putting in the work to learn a new skill for my job, I'd think, the outcome isn't guaranteed, so I'll just accept where I am. I wasn't practicing acceptance. I was practicing avoidance and calling it wisdom. That is not Stoicism, it's fatalism. And there's a world of difference. The Stoics weren't passive guys. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor leading Rome through war and a plague. Seneca was a hugely powerful political advisor and one of the wealthiest men in Rome. These were people who were deeply engaged with the world. Their philosophy wasn't an excuse to check out of life, but a playbook for acting effectively in it. The dichotomy of control isn't a simple checklist for sorting things into my problem and not my problem. Think of it more like a precision tool for focusing your energy where it actually makes a difference. The Stoics believed that while events are part of a grand causal chain, what they called fate or logos, we always have freedom in how we choose to respond. There's a classic Stoic analogy of a dog tied to a cart. The dog has two choices. It can trot along willingly with the cart, or it can get dragged. Either way, it's going where the cart goes. The path is set, but the quality of the dog's journey is entirely up to its own choice. A misused Stoicism only focuses on the cart. The cart is going where it's going, nothing I can do. Real Stoicism focuses on the dog's choice. Okay, the cart is moving, so how will I choose to move with it? This is an active stance, not a passive one. It's about seeing your situation clearly and then pouring all of your energy and virtue into what you can control: your own thoughts, your intentions, and your actions. Imagine you're a sailor. You can't control the wind or the waves. A fatalist would just say, "The wind is against me, I'm doomed." They'd drop the sails and just drift, blaming fate. But a Stoic sailor says, "I can't control the wind, but I can control the set of my sails." They accept the reality of the wind and then get to work, adjusting the rigging, steering the rudder, and using all of their skill to navigate the best they can. They are fully engaged and fully responsible for their part of the deal. If you find yourself using Stoicism to justify not trying, to shrug off challenges, or to disengage from your own life, that's a huge warning sign. True Stoic acceptance isn't resignation. It's a clear-eyed look at reality that becomes the starting point for virtuous action. It's asking, given the situation, what's the most rational and virtuous thing I can do right now? It's not a permission slip to check out. Toxic productivity. The third sign you're using Stoicism wrong is when you turn it into a tool for toxic productivity. This is a really easy trap to fall into in our modern, hustle-obsessed culture. It's that broicism you see online, where ancient wisdom is stripped down and sold as a life hack for grinding harder, sleeping less, and crushing your goals no matter what. It's using a quote from Marcus Aurelius about his duty as an emperor to justify your own 80-hour work week and looming burnout. I know this mistake firsthand. When I first started reading the Stoics, I loved their emphasis on discipline and focus. I saw phrases like, "The obstacle is the way," not as a guide for navigating life's challenges, but as a command to seek out and destroy any obstacle in my path, especially at work. I basically weaponized Stoicism against my own humanity. I'd tell myself that feeling tired was just a thought, a story. The need for rest? That was a weakness my rational mind could overcome. I treated my body like this annoying piece of hardware that my superior brain had to drag around. I wasn't pursuing virtue. I was pursuing a relentless, soulless efficiency. My calendar was booked down to the minute, which I justified by quoting Seneca on how precious time is. But I wasn't using my time well, I was just filling it. There was no room left for rest, for reflection, or for just simply being. The result was exactly what you'd expect. I got more stressed, not less. My productivity eventually crashed because I was just running on empty. I was in a constant state of low-level panic, treating every day like a battle. This is a complete perversion of what Stoicism is about. Stoicism is not a productivity system, it's a philosophy of life. The ultimate goal is eudaimonia, which means flourishing or living a good, virtuous life. And the four cardinal virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, are the roadmap to get there. Things like productivity, success, and money are, at best, preferred indifference. They're nice to have if you can get them virtuously, but they have zero impact on your actual worth as a human being. The goal isn't to maximize your output, it's to maximize your virtue. When Marcus Aurelius wrote about his duty, he was talking about his responsibility as an emperor to serve the people of Rome. It was a duty rooted in justice and the common good. He wasn't talking about hitting his quarterly KPIs or optimizing his workflow. Using his words to justify burning yourself out for a promotion completely misses the point. You're taking a philosophy about inner character and twisting it to be about external validation. On top of that, the Stoics absolutely understood the importance of rest. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise, improved and sharper, after a good break." He compared constant work to a field that you never let rest. Eventually, it becomes barren. A Stoic who just grinds 24/7 isn't showing discipline. They're showing a lack of temperance, the virtue of moderation. They're overindulging in work, just like someone else might overindulge in food or alcohol. If your Stoic practice is making you feel like a machine, pushing you to ignore your health, and making you measure your self-worth by your to-do list, then you're almost certainly misusing it. Stoic resilience is meant to help you handle the unavoidable hardships of life, not to help you inflict more hardship on yourself. The philosophy should lead to purpose and calm, not a state of constant, high-functioning anxiety. The goal is to live well, not just to work hard. Avoiding responsibility. This brings us to our fourth and final sign. Using Stoicism as an excuse to dodge your responsibilities, especially your social and moral duties. This mistake is often a toxic cocktail of the other three. When you suppress your empathy, you can't connect with people. When you adopt a fatalistic view, you convince yourself that the world's problems aren't yours to solve. And when you're trapped in toxic productivity, you have no time or energy left for anyone but yourself. The result is a retreat from the world, a selfish, isolating version of Stoicism that is the complete opposite of what it was meant to be. For a while, my misguided practice led me right down this path. I started to see my duties to my family, friends, and community as mere distractions. A friend going through a tough time, I'd think, well, their emotions are just their own judgments, and that's outside my control. A social issue I cared about. I'd tell myself, society is irrational. I need to focus only on my own inner state. I was using Stoic principles as a shield to justify my withdrawal. It felt safe, it felt logical, but it was a profound moral failure. I was shrinking my world down to the size of my own skull, and in doing that, I was abandoning one of the core ideas of Stoicism. The ancient Stoics were crystal clear that we are social creatures by nature. They believed we're all parts of a single, interconnected whole, a global community they called the cosmopolis. Marcus Aurelius wrote over and over that what is not good for the beehive is not good for the bee. He knew that our personal well-being is tied directly to the well-being of our community. To retreat from society to focus only on your own peace and quiet is, from a Stoic view, as unnatural as a hand deciding it no longer wants to be part of the body. Stoicism calls you to engage with the world, not to escape from it. It teaches that you have a duty to play your part. This idea, known as oikeiosis, is about recognizing our connection to all of humanity and expanding our sense of self to include others. Your duty isn't some huge abstract thing. It's found in your everyday roles, as a parent, a child, a neighbor, a co-worker, a citizen. Fulfilling these roles with virtue, with justice, kindness, and courage is the very heart of Stoic practice. When a friend is in pain, a Stoic doesn't coldly tell them to fix their judgments. A Stoic offers support, listens with compassion, and helps where they can, all while maintaining their own inner calm, not by shutting off their empathy. When faced with injustice, a Stoic doesn't just shrug and say, "It is what it is." They ask, "What is the virtuous action I can take here? What is my duty?" They may not be able to change the entire world, but they have a responsibility to act with courage and justice in their own corner of it. This philosophy is a training ground for life, not a hiding place from it. It's meant to make you a better, more effective, more courageous, and more compassionate member of society. It should make you a better friend, a more reliable family member, and a more engaged citizen. If you find your practice of Stoicism is making you more isolated, more self-centered, and less concerned about others, that is the most critical sign you've taken a wrong turn. The whole point of building an inner citadel isn't to hide in it forever. It's to have a place of strength you can venture out from, to go and do good in the world. Conclusion. So, those are the 4 signs you might be getting Stoicism wrong: using it to suppress your emotions, falling into fatalistic detachment, chasing toxic productivity, and avoiding your social responsibilities. Recognizing these patterns in my own life was a tough but game-changing moment. It allowed me to move from a Stoicism that was making me cold and anxious to one that actually builds resilience, connection, and real peace. It's a journey of constant course correction. If any of this sounded familiar, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Which of these signs have you struggled with the most? Let me know in the comments below. Sharing our experiences is one of the best ways we can learn and grow together. And if you found this helpful, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more on how to apply ancient wisdom to modern life. Remember, the goal isn't to be a perfect, unflinching Stoic sage overnight. The goal is progress, not perfection. Stoicism is a lifelong practice. Getting it wrong isn't a failure. It's a huge part of learning how to get it right. The true path of the Stoic isn't about building walls to keep the world out, but about building an inner strength that allows you to meet the world with virtue, courage, and an open heart.